John, did medicine find you, or did you find medicine?
James, that's a great question. I'm happy to be here, by the way. Thank you for having me on your show. I would say I found it because I was like just about every other American I've ever known in my life, growing up in a family who ate for taste, not for health. Just living, trying to be a good citizen. Not really prioritizing health, and so when I was a child, and my sister as well, we had a lot of throat infections and we didn't know why. We just would go to the pediatrician or the family physician. And what do you do when you have an infection? You leave with your prescription of some antibiotic and you don't even question it, right? You just take it as, oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But doing that over a period of time, over years, and unfortunately, the first couple of decades of my life, I realized at some point along my journey, and this was really when I started studying the body, studying physiology, and learning about how the body works, that that's actually a very bad thing to do. Like, yes, if you are infected with something, very serious that it is of bacterial origin that may be life-threatening, that's probably a good reason that you'd want to take an antibiotic. But if you're just going into your pediatrician's office because you got a little sore throat, and you didn't even get your throat cultured, so you don't know if it was viral or bacterial or maybe neither, but you take an antibiotic anyway, man, that is bad news for your gut over time. I mean, you are wrecking yourself. You are wrecking your gut. You are wrecking your immune system. You are doing damage to yourself, which most people don't even understand. So I had to kind of do a retrospective analysis of my life and, why I was this kid that got so many infections and then later having GI issues and other problems. And I had to search for the origin of all of this. And it really went back to my history as, again, having these throat infections and then being over medicated with these antibiotics, possibly a little bit vaccine injured. That's a little bit speculative. Fortunately, I was born in an era of, the recommendation was 5, not 80. As it has been up until just recently. Thankfully, the DHHS is doing something about that now. But yes, I definitely had to find it. I had to search for the answers, and the answers ultimately were found in nutrition. It had nothing to do with medicine. And I don't know about you, but like we throw around this word healthcare all the time in our country. We don't have a healthcare system. We have a chronic disease management system. And so if you're not caring for your health every single day, which is what, again, most people are not doing, then this is the reason we have all of these epidemics of chronic disease today, be it heart disease, cancer, neurodegeneration, diabetes, obesity, depression, you name it. It's just a massive list now. And it all traces back to nutrition. Nutrition is the fundamental, foundational aspect of our lives. It's not medicine. And this goes all the way back to the Flexner report that was published in the early 20th century, funded by Rockefeller. He wanted to basically get rid of natural treatments. And he was, of course, the king of petroleum back in those days. And so what did they do? They figured out how to make medicines out of petroleum. And this was the whole rise of synthetics and chemicals that we've been dumping into our body now for over 100 years as a population. And look where we are today. We're the richest country in the world, and we're arguably the sickest country in the world. So if you have trauma, if you have an accident, you're broken, you're bleeding to death, you need to be stabilized, I would argue the United States is as good as any country to be in when trauma happens to you. But when it comes to health care, forget it. We're the worst. We are, as far as first world countries, we are at the bottom of the list. We even have other countries that are second and third world countries in terms of things like infant mortality, quality of life, longevity, all these other indicators that smart people look at to say, well, hey, this country's in good shape, this one not so much. So why are we dealing with all these problems when we're the wealthiest country and we have all of this abundance, and yet our average American is so sick? And so this is where, for me, I've taken the power of health and wellness to myself and to my family and anybody who will listen to me. And you can have that power. You don't have to give it away to somebody in a white lab coat who may not have any idea about nutrition or health or exercise, may be very knowledgeable about writing prescriptions for drugs, cutting on you, prescribing or administering radiation or chemotherapy, signing a death certificate, all these things that that physicians are allowed to do legally. But when it actually comes to caring for your health, the prescription for health with nutrition, as Hippocrates, the founder of modern medicine, said, "Let food be thy medicine." Where in the world does that mantra fit into the average physician's life today? It doesn't. I mean, the average physician has no training in nutrition. Again, DHHS is trying to do something about that, mandating that all medical schools have to teach nutrition. But we're far from that. And I've taught medical students when I was previously full-time in academics, and we actually had at one time a little bit of an emphasis on nutrition at the University of Miami. Right now, there's very little of it because the program we had, the funding dried up, and there's just not a great emphasis in training future doctors, future physicians, and what it means to eat well, and basic principles of nutrition, basic principles about exercise, the things, again, that are truly fundamental and foundational. We ought to look at those things as the foundation, and then medicine is like your last gasp alternative. If nothing else works, which I don't even subscribe to that notion, but medicine ought to be the alternative, not nutrition and dietary supplements and exercise, the areas where I've spent my career. Those should be the foundation. And then again, medicine should be the alternative. But we have big pharma that's, corrupted our government with all of this lobbying and all these laws that are in place to benefit these drug companies. I mean, it's just, I don't know how many rabbit holes you'd like to go down in this conversation, but I mean, if you get me on my soapbox, I may not stop for an hour or two. So I don't want to do that.
There are a few threads I want to pull there, and perhaps we can revisit,
Sure.
But I want to start with you. You talked about being ill as a child, and you mentioned that seizing the power of health, of your own nutrition. What did you change to improve your own nutrition to overcome the hell that you were dealing with, getting sick all the time? And through that, what does that tell you about what we all need to do?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I was hoping we would address this topic at least a little bit. So again, and you can tell I have a bit of a Southern accent, although it's not as twangy as it used to be. But growing up in the South, I ate a very typical Southern diet of a lot of animal food, a lot of fried food, a lot of dairy. We still ate lots of fruits and vegetables as well, but a very heavy animal food-based diet. My dad didn't think a meal was a meal without a piece of beef of some type, a glass of milk, and a piece of bread. It could have anything else with it, but he needed those three components to make it what he thought was a true meal. So when I was doing this sort of evaluation of myself and, where I was and how I came to this point, I was introduced. It's hard to believe this has been over 25 years ago. This is maybe about 28 years ago, actually. A friend of mine introduced me to a website called notmilk.com. And unfortunately, Robert Cohen, the guy who runs that website, he used to have a listserv that he put out information every day. I guess he got burned out or, wanted to do other things in life. But my friend introduced me to Robert's website, and I started reading all the information. And I was still early in my scientific career at that point. I mean, I was still just really getting started in my own scientific career. So this was really more of a personal interest, but having enough knowledge about how science is conducted and, reading peer-reviewed articles and that sort of thing. And James, it blew me away. I mean, I started reading all of this stuff.
Oh, I just lost John. Let me bring him back.
No.
Are you back, John?
I'm here.
Yeah, I lost your photo. Don't see your.
Oh, here we go.
You're back. I'm not sure.
Like a glitch or something. Could you still hear me? Or
For a second, I couldn't, and then I saw you re-adding yourself.
So I'll just back up to that one statement. I started reading all of these, actually, just to not violate copyright issues with journals. Robert didn't have like, PDF articles on his website. He just had like summary statements of each article. And then it was up to me to like go actually read, excuse me, the whole article. But when I started doing this, James, it blew my mind because it was like the 180-degree opposite message that the dairy industry has historically told us, with all this creative marketing and advertising, like the milk mustache,
Got milk.
the got milk commercials, right? All these things that celebrities and athletes and all these other people have taken part in. And I mean, it was just such an eye opener for me because the scientific literature, when you read all this stuff about the problems associated with human beings drinking cow's breast fluid, it will just blow your mind. And this isn't like a handful of papers. This is literally now, I mean, again, this was close to 30 years ago. So now fast forward today, we're talking thousands of scientific articles. I mean, even just looking at it from an environmental, biological justification, why in the world are we as humans drinking the breast fluid of another mammal as adults? No other mammal in the mammal kingdom does that. So why are we doing it? There's no justification for that. And so that for me was such a moment in my life where I started thinking, wow, I've been drinking milk, eating cheese, ice cream, yogurt, all these things, all these years. Why have I been doing that? And then as I started leading down this or going down this path about, well, wait a minute, I thought this was healthy for me, but now I'm reading all this information that suggests something completely differently. And so it was really at that point that I said, okay, I'm done with dairy. Like, I'm not drinking this stuff anymore. And so I made a very conscious decision to stop using dairy food, whether it was milk or cheese or yogurt or whatever. And literally within not even a week, I had such a tremendous change in the way my bowel worked. And I don't necessarily need to get too personal with you and your listeners, but let's just say I thought constipation was the normal, where it took me 30 to 60 minutes to do my business. And I just thought that was normal. I had no idea that that's not the way your gut is supposed to work. And then once I cut the dairy out, man, it was like, I'm telling you, within a week, it was such a dramatic change. I couldn't believe it. You go do your business and within a couple of minutes, you're done. And it happened that rapidly for me. So that was very powerful for my mind to look at something I had been doing and just accepting the norm, if you will, or just that's what everybody's supposed to do. But wait a minute, what if that's not what we're supposed to do? So for me, that was a huge moment. And then it just took me one step further. Once I cut dairy out, then I started looking at everything else that I was consuming, whether it was coming from an animal or a plant. And I just made a very conscious decision over about a year period to completely eliminate eating any tissue or substance from animal origin. And so here I am today, 27 years, I've been eating a whole food, plant-based diet, and I've never looked back. I mean, I have people ask me all the time, the common questions: where do you get your protein? What about vitamin B12? What about iron? I mean, there are lots of questions that, people raise, but I can easily address those. And I consider myself to be one of the healthiest people that I know, regardless of age. I still have just an incredible functional physical capacity, and I feel great every day. So there's no issue with eating a plant-based diet. Some people think, oh, you can't get enough protein from plants. That's nonsense. That's not true. But for me, I don't really, I don't have a one-on-one coaching or consulting business per se. Sometimes I will get people who ask me certain things like this type of nature that we will have this conversation. But I'm really, focused on the company that I've started since leaving academics based on my research that if you are interested in talking about. But on a personal level, nutrition for me is absolutely your number one modifiable behavior to either improve your risk of not getting these chronic diseases that are killing us or contributing to a greater risk of the same things. And it's all about nutrition for me. I mean, certainly exercise is important. Obviously, you don't want to use tobacco. alcohol has really taken a major black eye over the last few years with the research coming out, linking even just a little bit of alcohol consumption with different forms of cancer. And of course, managing your stress and, trying to do your best to not get exposed to all these radiation pollutants and other chemical exposures and whatnot. So there are a whole host of things that obviously go into being healthy and trying to achieve optimal health. But for me, fundamentally, foundationally, nutrition is number one.
To your milk point, I've found a similar thing in my life, honestly, in that I have dealt with congestion basically since I was a kid, just chronic congestion. And I cut out most milk. And I'd still do some cheese. I'll do ice cream here or there. But I used to drink milk out of the carton and drink glasses of milk because, as you alluded to, that's what we were taught to do. That was with every lunch. Every public school lunch was a carton of milk.
You and me both.
And my congestion dropped. And it makes me wonder, why are we so captive? Oh, captive, I guess is that the right term? I'll roll with it. I'll call it captive. All right, because it seems like I think you alluded to a couple things, whether it was the Rockefellers earlier, or and obviously the milk industry. It seems like these lobbies have this outsized influence on how we define, especially things like nutrition. And you would think that we wouldn't lean on lobbies to make that kind of decision, but we do. And there's infinite amount of examples of it. Some you've mentioned earlier. Do you have a thought of how we ended up in this direction?
I do. And may I tell you why you were having that congestion? I can tell you physiologically.
Sure.
So milk contains a protein called beta casomorphine. And this particular protein causes histamine to be released every time we consume it. And so every time we consume milk or cheese or yogurt or whatever, you're taking in that protein and it's causing a histamine release, which is causing that congestion. So that's a tremendous response. And that same protein was causing me to be constipated. That's exactly why people have all of these dairy issues. And, people get focused on lactose intolerance. Certainly that's an issue, but lactose pales in comparison to all these proteins and hormones that are in milk. I mean, those are the things that are driving the obesity and cancer and diabetes and heart disease. Yes, lactose intolerance is no fun if you're having gas and upset stomach from stuff like that. But that issue pales in comparison to the others. Now, as far as where we are today and how we got here, unfortunately I would attribute a lot of our current environment all the way back to what Rockefeller did. I mean, the guy, I don't know, was he just like one of the most evil people who ever lived? It's just crazy that a guy could basically buy off an entire industry, the American Medical Association at that time, and then just basically turn it on its heels. And so from that point in the early 20th century to today, we've had just this increasing industry influence. I mean, and then if you think about what's happening right now, and it's actually a good timing for our conversation because the government just released its updated dietary guidelines, which I find to be a bit disappointing. I mean, on the one hand, I'm glad that they're promoting this message of eat real food, but when you put beef and dairy at the top of the list of this real food, to me, they're ignoring so much science out there that I just mentioned related to, again, the two primary killers of Americans, heart disease and cancer. You can look at so much research that shows if you eat a lot of beef and dairy all the time, that's exactly what you're setting yourself up for. So as much as RFK ran on this platform for president as being, the guy who was going to come in and just completely eviscerate all of these industry grips that they have on the government, that to me was like, wow, wait a minute. I thought you were the guy that was kind of separating yourself from all of this. So now it makes me wonder what was going on in these meetings when they came up with these new guidelines. But I think it's just, we have to be, I mean, how is it that we have allowed ourselves to have this corporate capture that RFK has been talking about for the last few years? I wish I understood that better on the political side. I hate to sound so conspiracy theorist about it, but it's like you have big pharma as, arguably one of the most important industries for many reasons in our country in terms of its total revenue and the way it just permeates our entire society. And so if big pharma, and especially the companies that are public, if they don't have customers, well, they don't have business, right? So it's kind of like what Bill Maher said about, I think about 15 or 20 years ago when Obama and Hillary were running against each other. And Bill Maher made this comment on his program one night about big pharma doesn't want dead people. Big pharma doesn't want healthy people. All the money is in alive people that are impaired to some degree so that they're lifetime customers, basically. And that, again, that was, however long ago that was that Clinton and Obama were sparring with each other. So it's, I think, going on about 20 years ago.
Yeah, just about.
And it's only gotten worse, right? Like it's not even any better. So unfortunately, we have this built-in system of feeding us all of this food-like substances, as Michael Pollan said in one of his books, and then just this domination of big pharma, of our medical system, and then what money is made by hospitals and insurance companies and all these other ancillary treatment organizations. It's just, to me, it's just the system is sick all the way down to the individual. And that's why one of my continuous messages to people is, please don't give away your power. Take your own health as your top priority along with your time. We can't do anything about the passage of our time in our lives, but we can do so much about our health. And it's not about, I know there are issues with people that live in, as they refer to them, as food deserts, and maybe they don't have, a park or a gym where they're close to that they can exercise. But still, like when you think of certain foods, somebody did a comparison not too long ago. This was about 10 years ago. Like an average 24-hour day eating fast food or eating, basically not very healthy choices was almost like no difference in cost compared to eating a whole food plant-based diet where you're actually getting good quality nutrition. So, a lot of people want to make this argument about cost all the time, but there's actually research showing that's not true either. But it requires effort. You have to go to the farmer's market. You have to go to the grocery store. You have to go somewhere and actually buy stuff that looks like food as it came from Mother Nature, not just depending on a fast food restaurant to give you something out of a drive-through that has no relationship to what it looked like in nature. So it requires effort. And that's where also, for me, I don't know about you, but for me, it's very sad when I look at, so many folks today who just don't, like their motivation's just not there. They just, health is not even on their top 10 list of priorities. So how do you even get somebody like that to acknowledge and recognize the value of going to the grocery store and actually shopping for your food as opposed to driving through the drive-through every day? There's just so many competing issues with this. It's just unbelievable. It's almost like this was not by accident, in other words, like, again, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, crazy person, but this almost just doesn't seem accidental. Like even taking it to like the political level of, all these corporate takeovers of the family farm. Like you've heard of so many stories of, individual farmers, they've been driven out of business because they couldn't afford the seed anymore because Monsanto basically took over the entire seed stock of all American farmers. And so
they copyrighted them.
Exactly. Like they've literally patented Mother Nature. That shouldn't even be allowed. Like, how did that happen? So there are just so many different angles to this that it just doesn't, it's, to me, it doesn't seem accidental. And that's where we have to take this in our own hands as much as possible and do something about it. And it really is about every single one of us. I mean, when you think about our population today, we're spending $5 trillion in this throwaway broken system. That's monopoly money. It's like infinity money. It doesn't even compute. So it really requires each one of us, regardless of what the mandates are from the government. Nobody's going to show up to your doorstep and say, okay, here, it's time for you to eat your broccoli today. We all have to do it. We all have to join in. I mean, we only have one ship, and we're all going to go down on the same ship if we don't reverse this thing.